I stopped buying these 5 things for 90 days. Here's what happened to my bank account. Voiceover script. Clean, no direction notes. 90 days ago, I had $400 in my bank account. Today, I have almost 3,000. I didn't get a raise. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't sell anything. I just stopped buying 5 things. My name is Lex, and I'm going to tell you about it. 90 days ago, I sat down and looked at my card statement, and I realized I had no idea where my money was going. Not forgot. I mean 50 to 70 small purchases a month, $3 to $15 each, that added up to more than my rent. And the worst part is, none of those purchases felt like a real decision. They felt automatic. Tap the card, open the app, click buy, and 10 minutes later I couldn't even tell you what I'd spent it on. That's the part that actually scared me. Not the amount. The fact that I wasn't choosing any of it. So I did something that sounds simple, but turned out to be brutally hard. I picked 5 spending categories and told myself, zero, 90 days, no exceptions. I'm not a finance guy. I don't have a degree in this. I don't manage anyone else's money. I just got tired of feeling broke while making a decent paycheck. So I ran this like an experiment on myself because I figured if it didn't work, at least I'd learn something about why it didn't. Before I started, I actually went back through 3 months of statements just to see what these 5 categories were costing me on average. Coffee alone was close to $90 a month. Delivery was worse, almost $200. Subscriptions I barely used added up to about $60. Random Amazon impulse buys were all over the place. Some months $30, some months over $200. And rides, maybe $70 a month, sometimes more. Add it all up, and conservatively, these 5 categories alone were eating somewhere between $500 and $700 a month, every single month, without me ever once sitting down and deciding that on purpose. Here's what happened. The numbers, the bank screenshots, and an honest breakdown of where I slipped up. Before I show you the results, let me explain the rules, because without them, this whole experiment is just empty clickbait. Here are the 5 things I cut out. First, takeout coffee. No Starbucks, no quick stop on the way. Second, food delivery. DoorDash, Uber Eats, anything delivered to my door. Third, streaming subscriptions I wasn't actually using. Not all of them, just the ones I hadn't opened in 3 or 4 weeks. Fourth, impulse purchases on Amazon. Not planned buys. The see it, want it, buy it within 5 minutes kind. Fifth, Uber and taxi rides where I could have walked, taken the bus, or planned ahead. One rule was non-negotiable. If I wanted to buy something from these categories, I had to wait at least 24 hours first. Most of those urges just disappeared within a day. There was also a second rule I added halfway through week 1 because I realized the first version of this experiment had a loophole. I wasn't allowed to save up a craving and binge on it later. No, I'll skip coffee all week so I can order a huge dinner on Friday. Zero meant zero, spread evenly, every single day. That one rule is honestly what made the whole thing actually work, instead of just becoming a weird bargaining game with myself. The first 2 weeks were honestly rough. Not because I was broke or couldn't afford coffee, but because these purchases were habits, not needs. My hand would just reach for my phone to open DoorDash on a Friday night. Week 1, I broke on day 3, ordered delivery because I was tired and didn't feel like cooking. $23 for a burger I could have made myself for 4. But that slip-up is actually what made me start tracking seriously. I made a simple log. Every time I wanted to buy something from these 5 categories, I wrote down what it would have cost. Didn't pay, just logged it. By the end of month 1, it felt like I was watching a completely different person, the version of me from before. Real savings for month 1, $760. Money that just stayed in my account. Not because I was earning more, because I stopped handing it over for things I wouldn't even remember the next day. The hardest part of month one wasn't the numbers, it was social. Friends calling, "Let's grab an Uber, there's a bar across town." You either explain the experiment or you look cheap. I chose to explain. Not everyone loved that. A couple of friends actually got kind of weird about it, like I was judging their spending by talking about mine. I wasn't. But that's something nobody warns you about. When you change your own habits, some people around you take it personally, even when you never said a word about theirs. I had to learn to just say, "I'm doing a thing for 30 more days," and leave it at that, instead of explaining the whole philosophy every single time. Month two was different. The habit itself started shifting. I noticed three things. First, I started cooking ahead of time. Not because I suddenly loved cooking, but because delivery was off the table, and my brain found the path of least resistance. Cook for 2 days every Sunday. Second, I canceled 3 subscriptions I had completely forgotten about. One service I hadn't opened in 4 months. $19 a month for something I wasn't using. That's $76 a quarter, gone for nothing. Third, the 24-hour rule actually worked. Over the whole month, I delayed 11 Amazon purchases. I went through with exactly one of them.
10 urges just disappeared the next day. Savings for month 2, $940. More than month 1 because the habits were already starting to change, not just the willpower. I want to be honest here. This wasn't easy emotionally. There was a point in the middle of month 2 when I was just tired of counting every dollar. I wanted to order a pizza and not think about it. But I held on, not because I'm made of steel, but because I'd already seen the numbers, and I didn't want to lose them. Around this time, I also started noticing something I hadn't expected. I was checking my bank app way less out of anxiety and way more just out of curiosity. Before the experiment, opening my banking app used to give me this little knot in my stomach because I never really knew what I'd see. By month 2, I actually looked forward to checking it because the number was almost always a little higher than I expected.
That shift alone made the whole thing feel worth it, even before I added up the final total. Month 3 was the easiest, and that's the strange, interesting part. What took willpower in month 1 had just become my normal day by month 3. I started bringing coffee from home almost every day. Cooking at home became routine, not a struggle. I even noticed I'd just stopped opening the delivery apps. Not willpower, I'd physically forgotten they were on my phone. Savings for month 3, $1,140. The biggest month of the entire experiment. Month 1, 760. Month 2, 940. Month 3, 1,140. Total over 90 days, $2,840. $2,840. Not from a second job, not from cutting rent or utilities, just from 5 small spending categories I used to think were not a big deal.
And here's the part that actually got me. That number isn't even the full picture. That's just the cash that sat there. It doesn't include the fact that I now have 3 fewer recurring charges hitting my account every single month going forward. It doesn't include the fact that I've basically rewired how I react to seeing an ad. The real value of this experiment isn't the $2,840. It's that the habits behind that number are still running, right now, even after the 90 days are technically over. Now I want to talk about what I didn't expect from this experiment, because the numbers are one thing, real life is another. First, I started sleeping better. Sounds strange, but less delivery food at night meant less heavy eating before bed, which meant genuinely better sleep. A side effect I never tracked but absolutely noticed. Second, I started actually seeing ads for what they are. Before, I just floated along, saw an ad, clicked, bought.
Now I physically notice the moment I'm being manipulated. Buy now, only 3 left. That used to work on me. Now I just laugh. Third, the money I saved, I didn't spend on something else dumb. I moved it straight into a separate account the day I got paid, automatically, so there was no temptation. That might be the single most important lesson from this whole thing, because just stopping the spending is only half the job. If the money you save just sits in your main account, it slowly dissolves into other purchases. You have to physically move it out of sight. There's a fourth thing I noticed that I almost didn't mention because it sounds small, but it actually mattered a lot. I started cooking the same 5 or 6 meals on rotation, and I got genuinely good at them. Not because I watched some cooking course, just repetition. By week 8, making dinner took me 15 minutes instead of 40, because I wasn't experimenting anymore. I was just executing something I'd already done 10 times. That's a skill I didn't expect to walk away with, and it's probably saving me time, not just money, going forward. I want to be honest, this wasn't perfect. I slipped 4 times over the 90 days, once on delivery, twice on Amazon, once on an Uber when I was genuinely late and had no other option. That's normal. This experiment isn't about perfection, it's about overall direction. Socially, it was harder than financially. Explaining to friends why you're not taking an Uber is its own skill you have to build. And yeah, 3 months without delivery and takeout coffee isn't permanent for me. Now that the experiment's over, I let myself get coffee out again, but on purpose, not on autopilot. That's actually the whole point I want you to take away from this, more than the dollar amount. This was never really about banning coffee or Uber forever. It was about breaking the autopilot. Before, I wasn't choosing to buy these things, I was just reacting. Now, when I buy a coffee out, it's because I actually want that specific coffee in that specific moment, and I know exactly what it's costing me. That's a completely different relationship with the same $5. So, to sum it up, $2,840 over 90 days didn't make me rich, but it showed me exactly how much of my money was leaking out toward things I wasn't even paying attention to. If you want to try this yourself, don't take on all 5 categories at once if it's your first attempt. Pick the 1 or 2 that cost you the most and start there. 1 month is already enough to see a real result. If you're not sure which category is actually your biggest leak, here's the fastest way to find out. Open your banking app right now and pull up the last 60 days. Don't categorize everything. Just scan for the same merchant name showing up over and over. Coffee shops, delivery apps, ride services. Whichever name you see repeating the most is almost always your biggest category, and it's usually not the one you'd guess sitting here listening to me talk about it. And one more thing that helped me more than anything else in this whole experiment. Write the number down before you start. Not after, before. Look at your bank statement right now, today, and guess how much you think these 5 categories are actually costing you a month. Then check the real number. For me, that gap between what I guessed and what was actually true was the moment this whole thing stopped being abstract and became personal. People always ask what I actually did with the $2,840, so I'll just answer that directly. I didn't blow it on something fun, and I didn't let it sit there either. Half of it went straight into an emergency fund I'd been meaning to build for over a year and kept putting off. The other half went into a basic index fund. Nothing fancy, no stock picking, just a simple, boring, automatic contribution. The point wasn't to find some clever investment. The point was that the money finally had a job to do, instead of just disappearing into coffee and Uber rides I wouldn't remember a week later. Tell me in the comments, what's the one thing you're willing to cut for the next 30 days? I'm actually reading the comments and I'll reply to the best ones. If this video was useful, subscribe. More honest money experiments are coming, no fluff. My name is Lex. See you in the next one.